I've got a question for you. So I've got friends who have the same type of albinism that I have, but we all seem to have different acuities. So we can all see different letters on the eye chart. Why is that when we all have the same type?
Yeah, good question. So the key is having the same type in inverted commas. So some people talk albinism as being one thing. So everyone with albinism has the same thing. And then the question is, well, why do some people, why they're so variable within that group? And we know the answer to that because there's lots of different causes for albinism. Then if you separate those causes and say, well, we've all got the same cause, we've all got oculocutaneous albinism type 1A or 1B or OCA2, whatever, then you might say, well, surely within that group everybody should be the same. But the same thing applies to that group, because everyone in that group will have their own personal version of albinism. So most of the people will have completely different spelling changes or mutations in the genes that caused albinism, and those different mutations mean actually they have slightly different pigment levels. They might all look potentially like they have no pigment, but pretty much everyone will have a little bit. And so those little bits might have been produced at different times when the body's growing, and therefore the retina might have grown a little bit better in that person or the other person, whatever. So there's a huge spectrum even within type of albinism. And in fact, we even have families where there's 2 or 3 people who've got exactly the same genetic cause. So they've not only got the same type, they've got the same mutation, and even they're different because other genes sort of fill in the slack. So your pigment and coloration in your body is actually dictated by loads of genes. So just because you've got one completely switched off, the other one's still a bit variable. So that's why everybody has their own bespoke type of albinism. And then just to make it even more complicated, sorry to be annoying, if you had one child born with albinism and then you somehow split them into 2 and they both grew up until they're 10 or 15 or 12, whatever, they would probably have slightly different visions anyway, because there's all sorts of nuances about if one eye decided to take over at a certain age. Maybe they had patching and the patching lasted a bit better. Maybe they were a bit better at patching. Maybe their nystagmus wasn't quite as much for a while. Maybe other kind of factors in their life, environment, have affected some way that the eyes have settled, maybe contributed to nystagmus, whatever. There'll be all sorts of different variances, even if that same patient was split into 2. So there's lots of levels at which everybody's literally their own version of albinism. So I think it's important to kind of have groups from a very medical point of view, but it's a big debate about how people group them and consider themselves part of one group or another or whatever. And that's a bigger topic than I can answer, I think. But I suppose the key answer to your question is everybody has a different version, basically, which is why everyone has different levels of visual acuity, nystagmus or no nystagmus, slightly different colour hair, etc. Sorry, that's a long answer to a short question.
It was a good answer. It's an interesting answer because I think it's really like, so I think it's more when I have friends who have 1A, so we all kind of look the same, but our vision kind of is quite different. You're right. I hadn't really thought about it like that. You just assume because you look all the same that you are all the same, but you are all your own genetic makeup and your own version of. Everyone has their own bespoke version of albinism, and I guess I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good one. Good question.
If you've got anything else you want us to discuss or any burning questions you want us to answer, then please put it in the comments below.
And if you could press some of those buttons at the bottom, the heart ones, the thumb ones, whatever they are, apparently that's good to get people to see these videos. So please do that.